secret knowledge that has been hidden from us for millennia. Imagine that everything you believed in is just the tip of the iceberg. That libraries burned in ancient times kept the keys to immortality, soul energy, and the true origin of humanity. That there is knowledge transmitted by the stars, hidden in pyramids, ancient manuscripts, and even in myths that were told to you like fairy tales. This video is not just a story, it is a journey through the forbidden, destroyed, and forgotten. Here you will learn: why were certain truths erased from history? Who are those who possess knowledge? And why are they afraid that it will become the property of humanity? What signs did ancient civilizations leave us, and why are only the chosen ones studying them? Watch carefully. At the end of the video, you will see a fact that will turn your idea of reality upside down. Don't forget to subscribe, because the next video may reveal something that even your intuition is silent about. Press the bell so you don't miss the awakening. Long before the first empires left their mark on the sands of time, when humanity was just learning to distinguish between day and night, there were teachings that did not belong to the earth. The most ancient civilizations, Sumerians, Egyptians, Maya, Dogon, unanimously claimed that their knowledge was given to them by the stars. They did not create their science themselves. It was passed on to them. The Sumerian tablets from Nippur, older than the Bible, mention a race of Anunnaki who descended from heaven to earth and created man. They were not gods in the usual sense. They were teachers, bearers of structured knowledge about astronomy, genetics, metals, the harmony of numbers. The texts describe how these beings not only gave knowledge, but also left codes in symbols, architecture, and mathematics. The secrets of the golden ratio, star windows, and time are hidden in the outlines of temples and pyramids. The Dogon tribe in Africa still has oral legends about beings from the Sirius B star system, and this was long before science confirmed the star's existence in the 20th century. The Dogon knew that it was invisible to the naked eye, that it was dense, that it revolved in a complex orbit, and that it had a satellite. Who could have told this to a primitive tribe in medieval Africa, if not someone who had come from beyond the earth? This knowledge was not abstract or philosophical, it was precise mathematical formulas, a description of the movement of the planets, medical treatises that were thousands of years ahead of humanity's capabilities. And that is why it became dangerous. The real mystery was not just that this knowledge existed, but who began to destroy it, and why. Hundreds of libraries, from Alexandria to Nineveh, were not destroyed spontaneously. They burned as a ritual to erase collective memory. Entire dynasties of rulers ruled, holding fragments of these teachings in their hands, using them to govern, but not to share. Only outlines were left to humanity, archetypes, symbols that cause unconscious trembling but do not fully reveal the truth. What was lost? Knowledge of how to use the energy of sound, resonance, and form to build structures, heal the body, and awaken consciousness. Knowledge of sacred geometry, in which each form is the key to universal harmony. Secrets about the Torah field that surrounds every person and can be activated. And most importantly, knowledge of the inner strength of man, the connection of his soul with the cosmos, and the true role of Homo sapiens as the keeper of reality, not the consumer of its shadows. These first teachings, recorded in symbols and rituals, were created not for manipulation, but to bring the soul to a new level of understanding of the universe. But it is this ability to awaken that has become the most dangerous, for he who is awakened will no longer be obedient. When knowledge becomes power, it becomes a threat to those in power. The history of mankind is not just a path of development, but also a chain of carefully planned acts of erasure. The destruction of libraries, the burning of manuscripts, the persecution of thinkers, pagan priests, alchemists, all this is not an accident. It is a program. It began with the temples of Babylon and Egypt, where priests kept unique knowledge about the structure of the universe, the human soul, and the relationship between matter and energy. They knew that a word could change the structure of water, sound could affect DNA, and form could create an energy field. That is why sacred architecture, pyramids, ziggurats, megaliths, was built not for burials, but for tuning human consciousness. These structures were living instruments of interaction with the cosmos. When empires began to transform spiritual teachings into instruments of control, the knowledge that made a person free became forbidden. Alexander's empire, then Rome, Byzantium, everywhere the hunt for the keepers of truth begins. Fire consumes the library in Alexandria, where thousands of scrolls on medicine, energies, and stars were kept. They were not destroyed by barbarians. They were destroyed by those who wanted to leave only one channel of truth in their hands: official, controlled, rewritten. Medieval Europe is the heyday of darkness. The Inquisition destroys women healers, shamans, astrologers, creators of elixirs. Everything that does not fit into the official dogma is considered heresy. But the most terrible thing is that not only the human body is destroyed, but also its memory. Symbols that were once keys are transformed into demonic signs, runes into forbidden writings, the sound of the sacred Om into pagan blasphemy. Even the teachings of Christ, which carried knowledge of the inner light of man, were transformed into an instrument of fear and submission. Those who preserved the truth, the Templars, Gnostics, Manichaeans, Sufis, became targets. Their orders were dispersed, their sacred books were burned, and knowledge was kept locked away in monasteries or secret archives. Some of it was passed on in whispers, sometimes through art, music, frescoes, hiding the truths in symbols. But this also became the goal of censorship. Real art began to be regulated. Even architecture was no longer built according to the laws of sacred harmony, but only for the sake of effect, splendor, or the conquest of space. Why did this happen? Because true knowledge always hides something more than just a fact. It has the power to change a person. And if a person changes, the system will break. All great empires knew it is enough for a people to gain access to their inner potential, and they will cease to obey. That is why myths about primitive ancestors, wild shamans, and magical thinking were created. We were made to believe that the past is only a shadow of the present, but the truth is different. It is in the past that what will make a person free is encoded. In this darkness of destruction, however, lights remained. Places and lines of succession that preserved the same knowledge, passing it on from generation to generation. It was they who became that invisible web that connects all civilizations into one ancient field of memory. While empires built temples for power, some built temples for truth. These were not the usual religious structures, but ancient esoteric schools, those that imparted knowledge about the soul, energy, the universe, and the true purpose of man. They operated in the shadows through whispers, symbols, glances, and silences. They were not taught in schools. They were sought out or found by chance when a person was ready. The Egyptian school of Isis, where initiations took place among the labyrinths of the pyramid, and each step required the death of a part of the past self. The Eleusinian mysteries in Greece, where participants became different after the rites, as if a veil had been lifted from them. The Pythagoreans were not only mathematicians, but creators of harmony between body, rhythm, and spirit. Indian ashrams, Tibetan monasteries, Sufi brotherhoods, Celtic druids, Orphics, Mayans, Incas. On different continents there were schools that taught not how to live, but how to remember who you really are. These schools operated with knowledge that is starting to return today, that a person is not a biological accident, but a carrier of an energy information field. That thought can materialize, and the heart has its own intelligence, that the geography of the world is not only politics, but also the geometry of power. That is why all the great structures, pyramids, megaliths, observatories, are located at the intersections of the Earth's energy lines. These are the so-called ley lines, a network of living arteries of the planet, the knowledge of which was hidden. They knew where the singing stone stands, where the exit of the spirit from the mountains, where the path of the sun passes. They built not just for the sake of beauty, but to synchronize a person with the rhythms of the cosmos. That is why the Egyptian pyramids are oriented to within 1/10 of a degree. That is why Stonehenge works on the days of the solstice. That is why the temples of Angkor Wat are an accurate map of the constellations. And this is not an accident, but part of the map of light that the modern world does not want to see. But why did this knowledge become dangerous? Because it gave a person power. Those who had knowledge of sound could influence emotions. Those who understood the vibration of color could change the state of the body. Those who knew geometry could build structures that heal or enhance energy. This was not magic, as it is contemptuously called today. It was a science that was taken out of context and hidden behind a veil of fear. Those who ruled empires began to build not in harmony with the earth, but against it. They lost the language of symbols. They did not need free souls. They needed obedient units. However, the continuity was never completely interrupted. The whisper continued to live in legends, ornaments, paintings, even in fairy tales, where the prince turns into a star, where the number 3 leads to salvation, where mirrors show not the face, but the soul. Esoteric schools learned to transmit knowledge in forms that could not be burned. Today this knowledge is awakening again. The old maps of the world of light are being put together, and we see that behind the curtain of history there was something more hidden than we were allowed to know. The truth is not in textbooks. It is in the silence of temples, in the lines of stones, in the vibration of the heart, and most importantly, it is in ourselves. The world is ruled not by laws, but by symbols. All ancient cultures knew this. Priests, philosophers, alchemists, and architects realized this. A symbol is not just a picture or an ornament. It is a portal. It is a vibrational code that can influence the subconscious, evoke emotions, change perception, activate the memory of the soul. That is why secret knowledge has been transmitted for millennia not through words, but through signs, patterns, archetypes. Because a word can be changed, a symbol lives forever. Look at the ancient temples. In each, a system of signs, an encrypted language of forms. Columns are not only architecture, but symbols of power. Spirals, not decoration, but a reflection of the eternal movement of energy. A square is the material world, a circle is the spirit, a triangle is balance. The cross is the point of convergence of the earthly and the heavenly. The swastika is a symbol of the movement of time and cycles. A snake biting its tail is eternal return. The Ankh symbol is the key to life. All these are not random images, but formulas for action. Now imagine that these symbols are not just decorations, but codes that activate certain algorithms in the human mind. That is why churches, cathedrals, pyramids, observatories were built as giant resonators of symbolic energy, and everyone who entered them found themselves in a space where these codes acted on them, even if they did not realize it. The secret orders that preserved ancient knowledge knew the power of each symbol. Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Templars, alchemists left their language in coats of arms, the architecture of cities, in the location of squares, in the plans of cathedrals. Paris, London, Washington are not just cities, but symbolic constructions. And now look at the logos of modern corporations, banknotes, flags of states. They are also symbols, but already reprogrammed. What was once a tool of awakening has become a tool of control. Symbols that open the way to the soul are now used for manipulation. Red activates anxiety, blue calms, yellow attracts attention. Triangles and stars are embedded in the mind since childhood. Advertising brands do not just impose products. They rewrite symbolic codes that were previously used for initiation. This is not a conspiracy. It is technology. Someone knows how it works, and someone does not. But the good news is that symbols are neutral energy. They can be rewritten, restarted, returned to their true meaning. When a person begins to see not just forms, but deep structures of meaning again, he wakes up. He begins to read reality not as a set of coincidences, but as a map, as a fabric woven from intuition, geometry, rhythm. Symbols are the language of silence. This is the language that the universe speaks to our soul, and whoever remembers it will remember himself. And so those who master this language possess not power over others, but the key to unleashing the true power of man. It is not in money. It is not in power. It is not in dogma. It is in a symbol that awakens memory. And that memory is beginning to speak to us right now. There is knowledge that cannot be found in books. It does not live in logic, does not obey language, is not recorded in any archive. This knowledge is inside you. It is a memory that was with you long before birth and will remain after your last breath. It is the memory of the soul. And today, it is beginning to wake up. Each era of humanity had its own awakening codes. For some, it was sound, sacred mantras, hymns, frequencies. For others, the touch of nature, places of power, the starry sky, the rhythms of the earth. For still others, dreams. Yes, dreams were the main portal to another dimension, to the truth that the mind hides during the day. In dreams, our ancestors saw the future, remembered the past, talked with the gods, observed the movement of the stars not on a map, but on their hearts. The secret schools of Egypt, India, Mesopotamia taught not science, but the return to oneself. Initiation began not with learning, but with purification of the body, mind, and speech. Only those who had gone through silence, solitude, and trials could enter the temple of knowledge. But it was not an external temple. It was an internal pyramid. And the path to it was always through the shadow, through the death of the old consciousness. That is why the ancients said, "Look within yourself, and you will see the universe." Not because it is beautiful, but because the entire structure of the universe is embedded in each of us. All sacred geometry, every note of the music of the spheres, every name of the disappeared gods, all this lives in you, but blocked, muffled by fear, forgotten by upbringing, buried under layers of lies called reality. The world we live in is not what it seems. We were taught to look outside, not inside. We were given names, passports, languages, but our memory was taken away. And now we seek meaning in information, not in intuition. We study symbols without understanding that we ourselves are them. We fight for power without realizing that the highest power is clarity and memory of oneself. True awakening is not in knowing facts, but in knowing oneself. And when you remember that you have already been here, that you have already gone through this, that your soul is older than all empires, you will cease to be afraid. You will remember who you are. You will see temples in your dreams that you have never seen in your life. You will begin to understand the voices of the wind, the movement of birds, feel the energy of people. Read space like a book. This is the secret knowledge. It is not about owning the world, but about remembering yourself as a part of it, not from above and not from below, but at the very center, because your heart is a compass and your soul is the key. And that is why the most powerful weapon is memory. The memory of who you were before you were told who to be. The memory of the true name that you have forgotten, but which begins to sound every night in the silence between thoughts. When the mind is silent, the soul speaks. And now, as you read this, you are already beginning to remember. This is not magic. This is not faith. This is the truth that has been waiting within you for millennia. Everything we have uncovered is only an echo of a deeper truth. The truth does not lie on the surface. You will not find it in books or on screens. It is quiet, silent, ancient. It waits in the depths of your consciousness until you stop looking outside and turn inside. Secret knowledge is not a closed library. It is a state of awakening. It is when you feel your heart remember what your mind has not had time to forget. When with each new thread of information, not only curiosity awakens in you, but something more, the feeling that you already knew it, that you are not here for the first time, that this world is only a reflection of a deeper reality in which you were part of something great, wise, ancient. We lived in golden ages. We fell into darkness. We were persecuted for the truth. We swore to remain silent. We lost our voice. But today is a different time. It is time to remember, time to reclaim your voice, time to reconnect with your source. All symbols, from pyramids to triangles, from numbers to legends, have led us to one thing: awareness. All ancient civilizations are not just history. They are mirrors for ourselves. History is not behind, but within. And as soon as we stop being afraid of our true selves, we will once again become who we have always been: carriers of light, wisdom, knowledge. Everything that was hidden is revealed. Everything that slept is awakened. The truth has never disappeared. It was just waiting for us to be ready to see it. If you have read this far, then something inside you has already awakened. Don't stop. Explore further. Ask, feel, trust yourself. And remember, the deepest knowledge is yourself. Subscribe to the channel if you are also looking for answers. Leave a comment if you felt that this was not just a video, but a reminder. And share this with those who are ready to remember the truth, because the time has come.